Welcome back to episode 51 of the Disorganized Wizard Club podcast. My name is Alex. I'm here as always with Adam.
Hello.
And returning guest Pete for this week.
Hello again.
And we're a group of Ottawa-based players that play just about anything and everything that we can qualify for. We talk about decks, tournaments, stories, just about anything to help you and ourselves get better at Magic.
Yeah, hopefully. But if you definitely want to get better at Magic, be sure to check out wizardtower.com for all your single needs, as well as strategy articles and various other podcasts and advice. There's a Commander sponsored podcast that you can check out that's linked on their site. They ship in Canada and the US on singles. Yep. So they'll help you get better at Magic, even if we don't.
For sure.
Pretty cool articles on that site sometimes. That's how I got to thinking about Nahiri's Wrath and Standard, because Sammy T wrote an article on Wizard Tower talking about Jeskai being a good fix for the blue-red God Pharaoh's Gift deck, because you can discard your God Pharaoh's Gift with Nahiri's Wrath and dome a bunch of stuff with other cards and then reanimate it with Refurbish. And if you want to see other cool brews and sweet articles, check out wizardtower.com.
For sure.
All right.
All right, guys. Another week of Magic in the books. We had triple Modern weekend this past weekend, 2 Grand Prix and an SCG.
Yeah, there was a lot of Modern.
Yeah.
And the Tower Open as well was Modern.
Yeah, which you played in, right, Adam?
Sure did. I mean, I don't know how much you can count playing Titan Shift as playing Magic, in that I counted and then killed people with Valakut.
I mean, there's a lot more math than Infect, so...
Okay, so I played Burn in one of my early rounds.
Mm-hmm.
It just was 2 ships passing in the night, complete race.
Yep.
I won the race because post board I played an Austin Bailoff and I needed that 1 extra turn to ramp and killed him with Escape Shift.
Mm-hmm.
And did the same thing in game 3. And
yeah, it's just an Explorer that gains you for life.
yeah, and that's it's pretty good. And then I played a bunch of my matchups just felt like that deck. I complained all day that it was just complete donkey deck. It's the most played deck on the Magic Online meta right now and it was all over. I watched Grand Prix Birmingham from England or whatever, the Modern Grand Prix, and they were saying a lot of people are playing Titan Shift because it has a good Grix or a Death Shadow matchup. And everyone's like, well, I don't see how, they have discard spells and counter spells. Having played it this weekend, I played against Shadow twice and I just annihilated them and the games weren't close. The deck's too redundant. Their discard isn't good enough because you'll just make your land drops. You play 27 lands. You only need 1 or 2 ramp spells. And then a single prime time and the game's over. If you play Primeval Titan, they can't counter it. They don't have a card in the 75 that counters Primeval Titan. The game just ends on the spot. So, because they're at 10 life. So you just get 2 Valakuts and make your land drop. And you save a Colony Heart Expedition or something, right? They just die on the spot. I played Death Shadow twice and just stomped it.
Yeah. And how did you finish in this event?
I top 8'd and we split the top 8. And because my quarters opponent wasn't queued for the Tower Open and I conceded to him in the quarters.
Okay.
Yeah. He was playing a sweet deck though. He's playing mono white humans in Modern. And I'm pretty sure he won. Everyone in the top 8 prize split, but they played it out just for tower points or whatever. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure he won. Playing Champion of the Parish, Thalia's Lieutenant, Thraben Inspector. Dude, we played some fun games. I don't know, we played a bunch, so we were just goofing around. Mm-hmm. But there were games where, he led on turn 1 Champion, and then went turn 2 Thraben Inspector Champion, turn 3, another 1-drop and a threat, and a Thalia's Lieutenant. And I was like, oh boy, I guess I'll take 13 from just this champion, these 2 Champion of the Parish. And then he blew me out with a Restoration Angel too, which I did not see coming. And blinked his Thalia's Lieutenant. Yeah, that got me pretty good. His deck was hilarious. And he's just easily top 8. He's just rolling over people. Because the Titan Shift deck, I mean, Anger of the Gods wasn't good enough against him, and he also had Brave the Elements main. So
oh boy.
Yeah, dude, his deck was hilarious. I literally don't think. I wish they post the online deck list. I don't think that this dude had main deck removal.
They did post online deck lists. Let me find them because I was looking at them.
Oh, for the Modern event this weekend? Yeah. Oh, I didn't know they did. That's funny. Yeah, I don't think he was playing removal spells. I'm fairly certain that he was just playing Brave the Elements and 33 humans. It was awesome. And our Restoration Angel.
Yeah. So is that, decks like that, the kind of decks you'd say prey upon Titan Shift? Or?
Yeah, I mean,
it's the classic, nobody has interaction, so just be faster.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Post board, my bolts weren't even good enough, really. I don't think, and yeah,
that's that's how Modern sort of is. The creature combo decks are almost always faster than the spell combo decks, but you're more fragile, right? Just so you just have to pick the if you're going into a meta of like spell combo decks like Valakut and Ad Nauseam and Storm and whatever, you just want to be a creature combo deck that matches up well against whatever removal they happen to be playing that weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And like that deck is like he wasn't playing like Aether Vials and stuff, which I thought was actually better because he was just like Champion of the Parish is like way scarier than an Aether Vial for something like out of that kind of deck. And like I don't know, it was like he had Mirren Crusaders main, which is like obviously good against Death Shadow.
Yeah.
And so like it's not like there wasn't any thought, and like Thraben Inspector has already kind of like proven its pedigree, I guess.
Yeah.
In Modern. Less good, without Flickerwisps and everything, but like I don't know, like, because, he doesn't have Aether Files. But, no, it was cool. And I was kind of, like, stoked for him. This guy's, like, first Modern event. And he just, like, bought some cards and was like, screw it. Like, I'll just try.
It's pretty sweet.
And he took his, like, mono white standard humans deck and, like, bought Champion of the Parishes and, like...
Yeah, here it is.
Some Modern... Yeah, what did he have in there? Like, oh, yeah, he was playing, like, 4 Knight of the White Orchid. But, like, yeah, he had Thalias, like, both Thalias, which were, like, pretty good against Scape Shift. Like, his deck actually was, like, quite strong against Scape Shift because like my lands coming into play tapped was annoying, like spells costing extra was annoying. Like
I've been seeing Thalia Heretic Cathar more and more.
Yeah, it was good. Like his deck was just like surprisingly like aggressive, like and strong. Like there are some cards that I don't think are good. Like he's playing like Gather the Townsfolk and stuff. Like maybe they're all right. But yeah, I guess he does have like 2 removal spells. He's playing like 2 Path to Exile. But
I mean Gather seems pretty reasonable with like Champion of the Parish and Thalia's Lieutenant.
Yeah.
I guess like that's kind of the only thing that it's really good for, but
Knight of the White Orchid is one I don't really think that that's like a modern playable card. I don't think you can play that card. I think that card's like the one card in his list that I'm like, you couldn't pay me to play that card.
It's like more
It's one of the few 4-ofs.
I know. Like it must be good though.
It must be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I don't know. Like I played an all-in.
I mean, I'd like to point out that Knight of the White Orchid plus Thalia Heretic Cathar can gang block basically everything out of Death Shadow.
Yeah, that is true.
First strike,
like his deck is
the more
very
first
good
strike
against
you
Death
have,
Shadow.
like first strike stacks so well, right?
Yeah, it makes double blocking, nice until they fatal push you, I guess. But
well, yeah, sure, but
like his deck is so redundant as well that it's
you-
good against Death Shadow's removal and discard.
you just go wide. Like all your cards do the same thing.
And if
You've
you
got
ever-
Mirren Crusaders.
Yeah, I was gonna say if he ever resolves a Mirren Crusader, it's lights out.
Yeah.
Although we got a message like it's not really a blowout, this is a punt. To
Yeah.
be clear, so it's not our blowout, but like definitely a punt was that he was playing a local player who hadn't played in a while in the finals, and he didn't realize that Mirren Crusader wasn't pro red, so he just wasn't casting the Anchor the Gods in his hand and just died to a Mirren Crusader basically, and had to throw away cryptic commands like bouncing it and like drawing cards because he thought that Mirren Crusader was pro red. And so this guy like playing his like modern like human stack ended up winning actually. Just pretty funny. Like, but yeah, so I think that like in modern, this is just an example of like, well, if people are going to play Titan Shift, which is like kind of a turn 4 or 5 deck, just like smash them super fast, right? Like modern is just not a place where you can goof around. And like, I think that this weekend, if you look at the GP and everything, like that's kind of the case. Like even the fair deck that won isn't really like a fair deck.
I mean, I think you can goof around. You just can't goof around doing slow things. You have to be, ultimately, you have to be like ending the game.
Yeah, I mean, because the one that won Sao Paulo was Bad Nightfall. I mean, that's a combo deck.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
I mean, it kills you with a combo, right? Like,
kind of like.
Yeah, sure, it can win otherwise. It's like the old pod thing, right? It's the old pod philosophy. Like, it can kill you by just attacking and just getting value, but it can also just combo you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I think you have to, we've talked about this like way back, like 30 episodes ago, that like if you're playing modern, like you have to have free wins because someone else is going to have them on you.
Yeah.
Like, it's like,
there's
our
so many...
just wrote an article, like if you register basic planes in your deck in modern, like enjoy losing.
I mean, yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? Like he's like, you can't, because those are fair cards, right? Like he's like, this
is a good follow up to Mono White won the tower thing.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a tower event, like whatever.
Yeah.
To be fair, there was like 8 people out of like 40 people. It was like a 40-person event, but there was like 8 players on Titan Shift. There was a lot of them. Many of whom hilariously didn't know how the deck worked. It was great to watch. They're just like, play my 5th land, you take 3. People are like, it's not what Valakut says. So many judge calls, man. It was a rough weekend. but I hated that deck. It's miserable. Like, although I did have a cool interaction. I played against Abzan, the Heritage Druid Counters Company.
Okay.
And I had a cool kind of like, I had left up a Security Tribe Elder and a Kaldheart Expedition ready to crack, like, in response to the combo, but like, so I could mow down creatures, and it was kind of like, yeah, I couldn't go for his life total. I had to go to control the board because he could have comboed me if he hit it, or if he had 2 chords in his hand, which he did. So luckily, I like killed his when he tapped out end of turn. I was like, all right, kill your Heritage Druid like right now. But like that was the only matchup where like I had to interact to stop a combo, which is like maybe a sign that deck sucks, like the Counters Company deck, which I said a month ago. I said that
I
deck
would
sucks.
agree that it sucks.
Yeah, the deck's terrible because like in my dumb linear deck, I was able to interact and stop their crappy combo, right? With like Valakut. That's not a good look for you, right? That like your creature deck is like getting disrupted by my Valakut deck. Like your creature combo deck like can't beat lands coming into play. Like, well, yeah, it wasn't a good look. That deck's bad. But in Modern, like, I don't know. I feel like you just have to play unfair or fast.
Well, like
Or super fast, which is how you can register basic planes.
Yeah.
Is you play like ridiculously fast.
if we're looking at the decks that won this weekend, we had Bant Nightfall, we had Burn, and Blue-Red Gift Storm.
Yeah, incoming ban.
Where was I saw Dredge somewhere? Was that just the like SCG side event?
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like, man, Storm apparently represented like the highest top 32 percentage of decks, hey, winning. So incoming ban on poor Storm. Yo, Storm is crazy though.
I mean, at this point, I think Storm likes it.
Yeah, right.
It just doesn't know when to quit.
Yeah. I like, to be fair, that deck is crazy. Like I talked about how we played that team event, right? And like Ryan played, like our friend of mine played, we played and we won this team event. And my friend Ryan went undefeated in Modern, and I think he lost a game across like 10 matches.
Storm decks aren't supposed to be able to play that much interaction.
Like
because you're not a Storm deck anymore. You don't have like
Ryan just didn't lose, is what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, but like Storm decks.
No, I'm saying the deck's really good.
That's what I'm saying. Like the Storm deck can play a bunch of remans, and like it can board into Dispels and Lightning Bolts and whatever. And like that doesn't matter. You're not diluting anything because your combo, you just have a 2-card combo now.
Yeah, with Gifts Ungiven. Like,
yeah,
the deck's so powerful. Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
What did this deck gain? Why is it good now and it wasn't
Brawl.
before?
Yeah, redundancy. It gets extra Electromancers.
Yeah, well, like that card's been around since.
Yeah, but it gets 7 now, so you can rely on it.
Yeah, but that's when like Modern's slow. That's all. Like it just took people a while to realize like how good it was.
Oh yeah, no, like as soon as Barrel was printed, this deck was
people
in the 5-0s. Like,
yeah, and like the fact that it just gets to play remans like is huge for this deck. Like it gets to interact, like, and it's so fast, and people have to leave in like removal against you. People have to play so awkwardly against you that kills you out of nowhere.
I love the Apostle's Blessing, the one Apostle's Blessing, because it's free with an Electromancer effect.
Yeah, you just pay 2 life.
Just get them.
Yeah, it's really hilarious. Too cute for my books, but yeah, Storm's a really good deck, and like you have to have a plan for it. My only loss actually on the weekend was to a Blood Moon.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I played against Through the Breach combo, or it's like blue-red control with Through the Breach and an Emrakul or whatever. And he Emrakul'd me in game 2, and I didn't know. I crumpled him game 1, and I was like, "What is going on? Is just this some crappy blue-red control deck?" And then like just on turn 5, he like attacked me with Emrakul, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's what's going on." Right? I was like, "All right, there we go."
There we go.
So I brought in 3 slaughter games for game 3. So I was splashing up Blood Crypt. I mean, because it's Titan Shift, I can get whatever color I want.
Yeah.
And so I slaughter games them, naming. So it was an interesting decision. Actually, I think I named Through the Breach.
Okay.
Deciding whether I should name Emrakul or Through the Breach. And so I ended up naming Through the Breach and taking all the Through the Breaches. And I thought about it, and I talked to Dan about it for a while about what the correct choice is, but whether I'd rather him strand an Emrakul in his hand. And I would, because if he has multiple copies of Through the Breach, he showed me Izzet Charm, so that can loot away through the breaches without disrupting his graveyard. Whereas he's playing Snapcaster Mages, so making him loot away his Emrakul is better for me.
Yeah.
It was an interesting slaughter games decision, right?
Cool.
Yeah. Sorry?
That's cool.
Yeah, it was like an interesting. I like tanked actually. I like slaughter games, and he was like, okay, and he like Emrakul, and I was like, actually, and I like thought for a minute, and I was like, no, you showed me Izzet Charm game 1, like I definitely
He was just blue red, not like Goryo's Vengeance or anything.
No, just blue red.
Huh.
And so I thought about it, and I was like, actually, I think, and I still don't know. This is actually like, so anyone listening, like, I'm curious what people think. This is like an interesting decision, right? He's like, because he showed you Is It Charm, and he has Snapcaster Mages, like, you also have to remember this. Like, do you name Emrakul? And I presume also he can't get to 15 land because of fetches and everything. So, right, like, do you take Emrakul or Through the Breach? It was like pretty interesting. Like,
Yeah, I don't think they actually could.
right, yeah,
Cast that
unless they
Emrakul.
cast Blood Moon, which is what he did.
Ew.
Because when I cast Slaughter Games and made the decision, he showed me his hand, which had a Blood Moon on turn, and he was going to untap and play Blood Moon on 3, and I had not like. So I played out the game because I had 2 Prismatic Omens in my deck, and as a way to beat Blood Moon. Because of the way lairs work, if I cast Prismatic after Blood Moon, my lands will tap for, they'll count as everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an out to Blood Moon, and I
Yeah.
didn't draw. Yeah, you got to think about that one for a second.
Kind of. It lets you cast Primeval Titan.
Right? Yeah.
Well, like you can still cast Primeval Titans.
Yeah,
through a Blood Moon.
It's not like an out to Blood Moon in the sense that my Valakut will do anything, because my Valakut won't do anything.
How many basics does
Oh, like 12.
12? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I did get stuck on green, and I couldn't. So I ended up losing because I didn't draw the Prismatic. Because I ended up losing because when he cast the Blood Moon, he had an island. So and he had like 2 cryptic in hand that I knew were dead now. But I cast a Primetime, and he remanded it, and I passed because I had like 13 land in play, but I only had 2 basic forests in play, which is all there is in the deck.
Okay.
And I never drew the Prismatic, and he drew all 4 remands. And he just remanded me 4 turns in a row while attacking me with the Snapcaster Mage. And that's how I lost, which was my only loss in the entire day. But I thought, and that's the guy who didn't know Mirror Crusader was in Pro Red in the finals. That's who I lost to. It was pretty funny. But yeah, so it was like kind of just funny. He drew all 4 remands to stop my 4 attempts at casting a Primeval Titan, which would have beat his single Snapcaster, because we were both just in our decks were both disabled from our win conditions, so we were just gonna have to win with the crappy cards in our deck, right? Mm-hmm. But he just happened to, anyway, it was a funny loss. But see, at least even playing this like crappy blue-red control deck though is like, I guess why I bring this up, like he had a free win, right, through the Breach Emrakul. Like I think you have to have this in Modern. Yeah, saying this forever. Yeah, Grixis just like Death Shadow and just Death Shadow decks in general, like even have it. They just have like the nut start where they just like
Tasker on turn 2.
Yeah, they like Thoughtseize you on 1 and then Tasker you on turn 2.
Like Thoughtseize and Liliana are free wins. Like that's even Jund has like they just Liliana lock you and you can't do anything.
Yeah, like your hand, like you can't develop your mana and your board enough to ever beat a Liliana. Yeah. Like he's getting Liliana locked, like Liliana the Veils, but yeah, it's like can do the same thing. We just get free wins, which is like an important part of Modern. I don't know, like I'm a little concerned about the Modern metagame. I remember I said like a couple weeks ago, like Modern's in a good place. And I said so because like Death Shadow is the best deck. But if like the response is that like Titan Shift and decks like that, Titan Shift and Storm are decks that start to see like a huge share of the meta, like that's not a good look.
Storm is fine. Titan Shift is harder to hate out.
Titan Shift just requires like miserable cards to like answer it. Like Blood Moon, which is like a miserable card.
I'm excited now because when the Modern Pro Tour comes, something's going to get banned. It's just going to be terrible, and then we'll never have to see it again.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right.
Like, I mean, are they going to ban something before the Pro Tour? Probably not.
No. You know what's funny though? I did think about something. There were a few really like I noticed this on coverage as well. There were like, while Modern doesn't have high level of interaction, it feels like it does at times because the decisions you make are so important and relevant. Like not killing a creature here or like not playing around Spell Pierce here and then letting a Blood Moon slip through like can end the game on the spot because the cards are just so powerful that like Modern feels like a format where like you just get punished so hard for like a slip up. But like there aren't that many decisions. Like it's so weird. I don't know. Like that's how I felt like playing it was like you just play around a few things that can like wreck you, and then from there you just coast. Like you just do what your deck's supposed to do.
Yeah,
and it was kind of weird. It was like you get like rewarded for knowing the format, but like the skill level isn't exactly like high. I don't know. It's weird. Like Modern's an odd format.
It's kind of gone in cycles. Like it was always kind of known as a format where your like knowledge of it and your skill at your deck was really what trumped everything.
Yeah.
And now
I think that's why you didn't see like Death Shadow in the top 8. of the tower event even. Like there weren't a ton of copies.
I think there was 2 in the
Yeah, but it wasn't like dominant. You know what I mean? Like
there's two here in Sao Paulo.
yeah. But that's what you would expect, like, or you would expect even more almost, I'd say, from like the consensus best deck, right? Like everybody's
Well, it's modern though. Like there was still 1 copy in Birmingham too, so like it's I don't know, it's still like getting results.
Yeah, sure. But I'm saying like people are like, it's the best deck flat out. You know what I mean? Like the way people talk about it, like you would expect it to be like just dominant, but it's still very good, and it probably is the best deck. But it's so hard to play, and I think that's why it's good. Like
Yeah,
that
well,
the
it's
best deck.
kind of it's like if you remember what the format was like when John dominated a few years ago. It's just the Jund of the current modern format.
Yeah.
Like it has 1 or 2 matchups it can never win, and then it's like 50% plus versus everything else.
Yeah, I don't even think it has like 2 matchups it can't even win because it's better than Jund in the sense that it's faster and can clock them faster, right? Like it can still Thoughtseize into Goyf, but its Goyfs are bigger and faster,
Yeah.
right? Like, and it has counter backup. Like that's a huge deal having Stubborn Denial. So like, it's probably better in those matchups. And like, but it's a hard deck to play. Like both my opponents, one of them played not great because like it's hard. Like it's hard to know when to Thoughtseize and what to counter and what to Thoughtseize. And they just kind of played the game sloppily and died. And they sideboarded incorrect. That's the other thing with Death Shadow. Like your sideboard feels like it determines so much. Like they left in Lingering Souls against me. And I was like, because it was one of the ones that's splashing white for Lingering Souls. Yeah, because it's
So
like
it
crazy
wasn't
crazy in the mirror.
Yeah.
Like Lingering Souls is insane in the mirror. And they were expecting to play the mirror a bunch, right? Which wasn't the case, but because there's been a bunch of like 4-color ones and stuff, right? But you can't leave in Lingering Souls against me. And I was like explaining afterwards, like, what are you doing? Like, you can't leave in Lingering Souls against me. It's so slow, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like,
and then there was like the modern PPTQ as well, like locally. And like, I know a few people, like a friend of mine played the like blue white control. And I was like, I don't think you can play that deck in modern. Like, you see it on Moto, it's like the 4th or 5th most played deck. But like, how do they beat Titan Shift ever? Right? Like,
I don't know.
Spreading Seas? Like, that's just like embarrassing. Like, the format's so hostile, like to those decks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Modern's in a weird place. It's a weird format. Like you're right. Like it's just like a cyclical format almost. Like
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a format where we see control decks do well really ever. So
I mean, other than like Twin when they had a combo.
Yeah. Yeah, but like, would you even call that deck a control deck?
Yeah, I would, but like that's because of how it's sideboarded, right? Like it's sideboarded into like a control deck a lot of the times, like Keranos and stuff, like or Jace's, like it brought in Jace Architect of Thought, like it was like it slowed down a lot, right? It turned into like a kind of mid-rangey like deck that still had the threat of the combo in it. But yeah, I don't know, like I think Modern's still probably okay that Death Shadow's at the top, and it's cool that it's like hard to play. I think that's a big like rewarding factor, and it won't get banned.
You still think after recent tournaments that Death Shadow is still like the top?
Yeah, I think it's best deck, but I just think it's hard to play.
Yeah.
Like I think it's really difficult to play. Like the one game I lost against Shadow, I won the match. I played against like Dan Lanthier, right? Like Gold Pro, very good player. And like he in game 2, the one game I lost, he like ripped the perfect hand to like rip my hand apart, and like his surgical extraction on my Farseek hit the second Farseek in my hand, like that he didn't know about. Like it was just like a blind called shot, like, and I needed that Farseek for that turn to like sequence perfectly, like to just kill him. And like he top decked a Snapcaster Mage to Stubborn Denial to counter my Scape Shift, which would have killed him. Like it was just like he had like the exact sequence and used every single card in his hand to not die and like to kill me. And so like I think that matchup's not great. And on top of that, like you need to play like perfectly. You know what I mean? You have to play super well and get lucky to beat Titan Shift. So I think Titan Shift is probably Death Shadow's like worst matchup, which is why you're seeing so much of it. And like that deck's never losing to blue white control, and has like some other good matchups. Like Obstinate Baloth can beat the burn matchup, and you just race burn, right? So if Titan, and like none of these lists were playing Hour of Promise, but I played 4, and if you don't, you're a fool, because playing 8 Primeval Titans is crazy.
Like, yeah, that was one thing I noticed. None of the top 8 lists are playing.
Yeah, they're just behind the times. They're like playing Bolts main like crazy people. They're just playing like Interaction. The guy's playing like Thragtusk, which is pretty sweet main. But I would never do it. Like Hour of Promise was insanity. People were like, is it slow? I'm like, I don't know. Is turn 3 slow? Like, because then they have to kill you that turn. Or you kill
this
them.
one is the one from Sao Paulo was
Yeah.
playing 3 Hour of Promise.
Yeah, Hour of Promise is busted. It's incredible in this deck. Like with Scape Shift, Hour of Promise, and Primeval Titan, like, and he has like multiple Summoners packs. Like you basically just have 20 cards in your deck that are win conditions that are must counters, or you win the game. So yeah, Hour of Promise out of Titan Shift was like absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, really enjoyed it. Like the card, did not enjoy the deck. We'll never play it again. Oh, I like teased like Mike and Andrew when I left, because you know how they're like Scape Shift fanatics, and like they're like always like neurotically like going over their Scape Shift lifts. Like, I don't know how I feel about the third bolt, like they were like actually saying that when I like rolled up and they had their like foil like decked out like Scape Shift decks, right? And like I was just like, this deck's sweet, it wins a lot, and I was like, but it's pretty dumb. I was like, deck cool, like it's good. But I was like teasing him. I was like, no wonder you guys like it. You don't have to make any decisions. Just blast your lands. It's like the most like stupid linear deck imaginable. Like there's no decisions. You just play your lands and kill them. Like, so I didn't enjoy that. Like I didn't, like my opponent I played in the quarters or whatever that I kind of like conceded to, that was playing the mono white deck that won. Like he was like asking me, oh, do you like this deck? I'm like, actually, no. Like it's miserable. Like it's just like, I just don't like decks where it's like 2 ships passing in the night, like nothing mattered. Like so many of my matchups, like it felt like it was just like a race to who could goldfish and play solitaire faster. And I hate that. And I think that's like a miserable way to play Magic. But
man, that was the best thing about Infect. You just crushed all of the miserable matchups. Like all of the miserable decks, you just crushed brainlessly.
Yeah.
And you actually had fun, interesting games against all of the like good interactive like decks you wanted to see more of.
Yeah. Like you had fun against the fun decks.
Infect existing like pushed all of these dumb decks out and like encouraged people to play lightning bolts and stuff. It was great.
Yeah, it's actually kind of that's a good point. That's kind of a bummer that Infect like took so many hits over the past
when
while.
People talk about like the placement of the format, Infect is like actually the best placement of any format because it pushes the format into a good place.
Yeah, because you have to play cheap interaction.
Yeah, if you want to beat Infect, play a fair deck.
Yeah.
If you want to lose to it, play something dumb like Tron.
Hell yeah.
Or play like Titan Shift. Titan Shift's never beating
No, never, ever,
a million years. Like
No.
you're just dead on turn 2 or turn 3 every game.
Yep.
never interacting, never doing anything. You're just dead. Yeah. And like so I can see that. I wish Infect was still kind of like keeping those decks in check, because
I mean, if
Infect is fun to play against. Like I've played against Infect with so many different decks and it's fun. But that's because I don't play like
Infect is still a good deck. It's just I think looking at some of these results, like this metagame is shifting into a place that's pretty soft to Infect.
Yeah, maybe that's like I mean, apart from Death Shadow, I think that like
Death Shadow is
the issue.
definitely probably unwinnable, but like
that matchup
I don't think you're ever going to want to sleeve up a deck that can't ever beat Death Shadow.
Right, Infect just can't beat them, right? There's no way.
I don't play
Some play
Modern
Lily
anymore.
on the last hope. Like that card alone just kills your entire deck. Like there's so many. Like this was like Eldrazi Winter when somebody was like trying to tell me that Infect was good. They're like, oh, it's good against Eldrazi. I'm like,
they have Chalice's main.
they play Chalice main. They play all their creatures are colorless, so like your protection.
Yeah, you
spells
can't
don't do
even
anything.
swing through them. Like,
Yeah, I was like, what are you talking about? And then like now also, what's the second best deck in Modern?
Eldrazi Tron.
Right. What card do they play?
Chalice.
What other creature do they play from Standard that seems to be pretty good against Infect?
Walking Ballista.
Yeah, it is not a good place for Infect. Like,
okay.
like these decks that are beating up, that's why these decks are doing well, is because Infect is like unplayable.
Yeah, it can't.
So the decks that were soft to Infect, Titan Shift, Storm, and Hyper Aggro, are now doing well because there's nothing to keep them in check. Because Grixis Death Shadow Jex broadly, and Eldrazi Tron are just going to crumple your like dumb zoo deck. Like Fatal Push, Snap Fatal Push, the new Bolt Snap Bolt, right? Like you can't play your like dumb aggro deck. Like Walking Ballista is going to mow down your board. Like they didn't need to draw Tron on turn 3. They just play a Walking Ballista and shoot down your entire board. Like Infect can't beat that. So like,
soon maybe
one day. Infect will rise again.
we'll have our day.
Yeah. And Infect is like a cool day. I think you're right though that like the format is better when decks like Infect are good.
Well, specifically Infect.
Big Infect fan.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know, like, but Modern, we'll see how it goes. Like, I'm actually curious. Like, I kind of keep tabs on Modern, and I play it more than I think most of us on the podcast do.
Yeah,
Well, let's not
I'm
get carried away.
I'm kind of at the point now where
You're still taking a break,
I'm still like salty from last time I played.
dude.
it,
It
which was
was like a month and a half ago.
2 months ago, maybe. Yeah.
You said it was about a 2-month window usually for you before you'd be willing.
generally 2 months of time to like cool down from the last time I played to the next time, and then I trick myself into thinking, oh, maybe it'll be fun this time, and then I leave there being like, well, you're such an idiot. Why? Why? You should know better by now. And then 2 months for me to forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always go through because I'm always curious. Like, I think Modern has a lot of potential, which is why I play it like a decent amount and I keep tabs on it because I think it has potential to be a really interesting format. The solution still, like I've been saying forever with Phil, is ban fetches. Ban fetches in Modern will be an acceptable format, but then you have to ban something from Affinity because
Oh, okay. Well, I wonder, could we possibly ban
it's
like
box opal.
Yeah, I was gonna say
You might have to ban 2 things from Affinity,
Well,
and you have to ban Blood Moon.
Yeah, sure.
If you ban fetches, you have to ban Blood Moon.
But like,
because people want to play checklands.
you can just look at Affinity and take your pick of ban-worthy cards. Like,
I think just Opal's fine.
It's probably
Maybe
fine.
plating. Definitely not Ravager because you got to keep a card around that lets people screw up.
Yeah, Ravager's fun at least.
Right? Like no, like
Yeah,
Ravager's
yeah,
fair
right.
because people blow it. People can screw up Ravager, whereas like plating and Opal.
No one screws up plating in
Hey,
Opal.
put it on a guy and catch him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we'll see what happens with Modern.
No, they're never banning fetches, so it's just.
I'm excited for the standard GP though this weekend.
Where is it?
Denver, right?
Denver.
GP Denver.
No idea.
I saw that Michael Jacobs was streaming and he was testing for GP Denver and he was
Okay.
playing a bunch of decks. And I kind of like watching Jacobs stream because he keeps a record for what's winning. He makes notes
It's like this insane spreadsheet.
Yeah, he has like crazy spreadsheets of all his matchups, results, like notes he makes, like why he lost, what happened, what cards mattered. Like he's very diligent in his testing process. So it's cool to watch him stream.
I always enjoyed watching his stream. I used to watch it a lot a couple years ago.
Yeah, I like that he gets riled too. Like he's like a kind of salty guy, and I like it. You know, like
He's a super salty guy.
yeah, but I like him. Like he's good. I think he's like a nice guy though. Like even though he's salty, it's a Crip. You know, the Hearthstone streamer. That guy's like a salt mine. Like he's, but I love him.
I cannot watch that guy stream because everything is salt. It's
Dude,
just
he's
mono
so
salt.
angry. Yeah, I love it.
He just like complains about luck nonstop. Like, oh.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. He's the world's unluckiest man. But yeah, like, yeah, it's great. So
what do you get from playing Hearthstone?
But I think Standard's in like a really sweet place, and I think it's going to be sweeter. And it's kind of like, I guess, our topic for like improving today, or I guess like it's more like a spotlight. It was like we were going to talk about because like Pete is a huge mid-range fan, huge, and part of playing mid-range is being huge and going big.
Yeah,
and mid-range is perhaps in a spot, and we said this after the Pro Tour that mid-range decks are generally good in the face of aggressive formats because they go a little bigger. And so today we thought we would talk about, you know, what are mid-range decks, because it's a misused term and a misunderstood term.
Yep.
Why they're good and the kind of misconceptions people have about mid-range decks, right? That you all often hear that mid-range decks are, they're just a pile of good cards. Like,
Which, kind of true, but
it kind of underplays the deck building decisions that go into mid-range. And it was, you know, on the way here, P was saying, you know, like, well, what is a deck, right? Like,
yeah, like how do you think about a deck? And like, it's a pile of cards, sure, but it's also like a web of synergies, right? And there's explicit synergies like Merfolks and Merfolk Lords, or like, you know, cards that call out what they're supposed to be doing. But there's like other synergies too, right? Like playing 26 lands and Sylvan Advocate and Man lands, like that's a synergy, right?
Right, like you don't play Sylvan Advocate in 19 lands.
Yeah.
Even though it's a good 2-drop, that's not your game plan.
Yeah.
So there is still, while they are a pile of good cards, these mid-range decks still have a particular way of being built and thought about.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
like Tireless Tracker is the exact same thing as Sylvan Advocate in that sense.
Like, so it's like a mid-range deck is trying to go a little bit bigger than the rest of the format, so it has to play more lands. So it typically wants to play Flood Insurance, right? So it'll be play things that have activated abilities that cost mana. It'll play things that it can like filter out lands if it wants to, or like get extra value out of lands.
Right. So cards like, for example, I've saw Michael Jacobs, who was testing out the Rug Energy or the Teamer Energy decks, right? And he was playing a Swamp, Servant of the Conduit, and Aether Hub, so he could splash Scarab God.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the perfect mid-range card, right?
Yeah.
You can spend your mana. It's a 5-mana 5/5. It's an efficient threat that keeps coming back, which again lets you spend mana by just recasting it.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of randomly hoses some graveyard decks. But also its whole point is that it goes big. Given time,
it helps you go bigger than the other mid-range decks.
Right. Given time, like it just wins the mid-range mirror, right? And
Yeah.
That's a big part of mid-range decks, is just trying to go over the top, but still having early enough interaction in plays. Like what the classic, modern mid-range deck is like Jund.
Yeah. You've got big dudes and you've got a bunch of cheap interaction. You're playing Thoughtseize and Fatal Push. So you can like deal with creatures and you can deal with non-creatures to some extent anyway.
Well, you're not completely dead to them.
Yeah. You have play at all points of the game, basically.
It's a deck that likes cards that pivot.
Yeah. There we go.
So when is mid-range good?
Mid-range is good when control is bad, usually. Because mid-range sort of, when a format is all about aggro, the aggro decks start one-upping one another. They start going a little bit bigger, and then they sort of blend into like little mid-range, and then bigger mid-range, and then even bigger mid-range. And then soon people have like cutting 1-drops and playing more removal and like playing card draw and playing like 5-drops and 6-drops and stuff. And that's sort of when mid-range has taken over a format. So it's, to answer your question, it's good before it takes over, kind of.
Right, just as it's on the cusp, right?
Yeah.
So mid-range, then what you're saying is almost like it's a metagame deck.
Basically, yeah. Because a mid-range deck will have like cheap answers to aggro's early creatures, and it might have like a cheap sweeper like Anger of the Gods or something, and then it'll have just like a huge thing that the aggro decks they can't swing into it and they can't kill it without like dumping their hand.
So what does that look like in a world though with like Hazoret? Like how, or is it the hope for mid-range decks that zombies kind of solve the Hazoret problem and then they're preying on zombies?
I think, well, there's two ways. You can sort of hope that zombies has solved it, or the other one is you play Grasp of Darkness or White Exile Removal.
Like Declaration in Stone, which I think is actually an underplayed card.
Yeah.
In Standard and a good, because games aren't as grindy as they were, because things aren't as mid-range. So what you're saying then is like, this is the perfect time for mid-range, because mid-range hasn't taken over. So I wonder to what extent, like at this GP in Denver, mid-range actually becomes very, very good.
Yeah. I think a card like Deck and Stone, though, gets worse as mid-range gets better.
Definitely, because more time.
Yeah.
There's more land drops. People are
Deck
going
and
bigger.
Stone missed its chance for this format.
I think it has 1 week left.
Probably, yeah.
I think this is it. This is its last weekend, but it might be a bit too late. You're right. Like, but it's if it has a shot, this is it. It might have had it last week. If there was a GP last weekend, that might have been it.
And I think it really depends on how many zombie decks show up. Like Deck and Stone is great against zombie tokens, but even against mono red, like sure you can get rid of a Kenra and it's not coming back, but they play like
you're only using that on Hazoret.
Yeah, they play so many lands that they can just crack the clue and move on with their lives anyway, So it has to either be solving a specific problem like Hazoret.
So yeah, they sort of play a lot of lands, but they don't actually have a ton of extra lands to use. I found watching their games because of things like if they board into the Glorybringer package, and also just Hazard, it's actually kind of expensive, and like they are actively trying to play out their cards, and also they want to be activating Ramunap Ruins, right? So they don't really have, like, if they spend time cracking a clue instead of playing Ramunap Ruins, I think it's better for you, because what if they just draw another redundant creature that you have the removal spell for, but you don't have an answer for Ramunap Ruins?
That's true.
You know what I mean? So I think that Deck and Stone is still actually like okay there. Like, again, obviously, like Deck and Stone's drawback has always been a risk.
Like I think, and like specifically against this deck, it's a sorcery too. That puts it way behind Grasp of Darkness.
That's a huge problem.
So I think if mid-range is going to do a big thing this weekend, it's got to be black. It has to be playing Grasp of Darkness.
Well, I think it's the old blue-black Reanimator deck, if it's anything. Deck is sweet. Told you it was sweet. Now it's like 5-0 lists and stuff. Deck is awesome.
I never said it wasn't sweet.
Yeah. Fatal Push, because it just playing Fatal Push and Grasp.
Yep.
And then Champion of Wits to just block, like Kalidas. Like, it has all the like mid-range answers, and then just a powerful Reanimator package.
Yep.
Like, I think that deck's very good, and I think that this is the weekend maybe that like those kind of mid range decks see a breakout. I think this weekend that is like the time to play mid range.
I'm kind of stoked that Reanimator is popping its head up again. I miss playing Reanimator decks.
I love Reanimator decks too. I love. Well, how did Cam describe it on the podcast one time? He's like, if it was like a janky mythic and it says graveyard on it somewhere, Adam will play it. I can't remember what he said. I was like, yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
That I will do.
Yeah. But you were talking before the podcast that you think a card like the Scarab God is really well positioned right now.
Yeah, I think also after rotation, it's a card that's very well positioned. I think like it's just as a 5-mana 5/5, it's big. Like it doesn't die to the cards that matter.
It's big enough you can play it into a Glorybringer.
Right, exactly. That you and if you're playing Servant of the Conduit, which doesn't rotate conveniently, like cranking that thing out on turn 4 is pretty good. If your plan is to untap and exile one of their guys, get the Scry trigger, get them to lose some life, like take their Thraben Inspector or whatever and make a 4/4. Like it has a lot of game. And also splashing black from the Scarab God in the like Rug Energy deck lets you play Cut to Ribbons, which one of the problems that Pete mentioned for mid-range decks is playing against control. It's miserable because like, well, what? Yeah.
I mean, you're not fast enough to get under them. Just like they have a bunch of cancels with upside and they don't actually need the upside. Cancel is just good against mid-range. Like a 3-mana counter spell counters your 5-mana cards just fine.
Yeah.
All their cards trade up on mana. And yours are all just trading down.
And so, if you're trying to go long, they can go long better because they have more dedicated card draw, right?
Yeah, and you don't have dedicated card draw like they do.
Yeah, and even if you can answer their card, like even if you can kill a Torrential Gearhulk, they got value out of it. If they're countering your things, you're not getting value out of your spells.
Yeah, like the damage has already been done because they cast the Glimmer off the Torrential Gearhulk.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, and so that's a bit of an issue.
Like there's ways to deal with that, but yeah. Where are we going with this? Are we going with control?
Oh, no, but I was saying, okay, so like playing Cut to Ribbons is good though.
Oh yeah, Cut to Ribbons. Right.
Because if mid-range is bad against control, then Cut to Ribbons gives you this extra threat that you don't have to invest a card into.
Yeah.
And it's not dead game one because you can discard it, right? Like you can find a way to get rid of it. Like worst come to worst, discard a hand size. You use it on their Torrential Gearhulk after you attack with a Servant. Like you'll find a way to get a Cut to Ribbons out of your hand.
Yeah.
And simply like that threat in the graveyard gives your mid-range deck like extra reach and extra pressure on the control deck to never get rid of their last counterspell or you'll just kill them.
Yeah.
So the Splashing Black and the Rug Energy deck seemed really good to me because you get to play Scarab God, which is a resilient threat that if they don't Void Shatter is just going to keep coming back. Or they have to counter it, I guess, on the way down. But you have to be very careful with it. But if it ever resolves and you can activate it, it seems really good. But those matchups are never going to be good for mid-range decks just because you're always trading down on mana, right? You're trying to resolve a 5-drop into their Essence Scatter.
There's things
not a good look.
Yeah, there's things you can do, but it's not going to be good game one. Like
so Scarab God though seemed really good to me even against zombies, for example. Because reanimating their zombies is pretty good value. They lose some life, you get to scry.
Yeah.
You can take their zombie lord.
Well, even just taking their resilient threats out of the graveyard, right?
Right,
like,
exactly.
You can do that at instant speed. You can grab, what's the 2-mana mythic?
Relentless Dead.
Yeah, you can just grab a Relentless Dead with a trigger on the stack or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it gets kind of just shrinks down Diagraph, right? Yep. Future Diagraph Colossus. So like, yeah, Scarab God's really good. I think it's really well positioned. Pete and I were joking that before it rotates, before Elder Deep Fiend rotates, we should be building a deck with Champion of Wits, Elder Deep Fiend, and like the gods. Like Scarab Gods, because when you emerge Scarab God, it just comes back to your hand, right? I was like, man, that is sweet value. Like, was pretty mana intensive.
If you were going into the standard GP this weekend, what would you be thinking of playing?
I would probably play Blue-Black Reanimator. I think that deck beats all the mid-range decks, which I could be wrong, and obviously I could be wrong, I don't know. But I think that deck is better against any other mid-range deck. Like I think that the Rug Energy deck, for example, just gets like slaughtered by it because it's going too big. The Reanimator deck just is going way too big. Like it has Ishkana and a ton of noxious Gearhulks, which is got like that's the definition of a mid-range mirror breaker, right? Like
Yeah.
a card that 2-for-1s you, has menace, gains life, like it just does too much. Like it's entered the battle. Like big mid-range mirror breakers have always been cards that have entered the battlefield effects. Like ETB triggers are always what mid-range decks want, which is why like Thragtusk, Siege Rhino, like these were the kings of mid-range decks.
Yeah. A big body. It has to affect the battlefield. It has to be big enough that it's a threat on its own, but it also has to get you value right away.
Yeah, so that if it dies to a removal spell, you don't really care because it already did something.
Yeah.
So this is why Thragtusk, Siege Rhino, right? So like this deck is playing like Ishkana, Noxious Gearhulk. Like these are cards that do something when they come into play and are obnoxious bodies.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would play the Reanimator deck because I think it's good against zombies because it plays main deck Yahenni's expertise. I don't think it's as bad against mono red as it would seem on paper because it's playing Fatal Push, Grasp, Yahenni's expertise, like, and just Ishkana and the Noxious Gearhulk's like it's late game and can catch up.
Yeah.
And I think the problem for a lot of mid range decks against mono red is that they couldn't catch up. Like once they were at 5, it was too late.
Yeah.
They couldn't gain life back, right? Whereas like you can Noxious Gearhulk your own Ishkana to gain 5, and that's
pretty sweet.
Or your Razaketh to gain 8.
Yeah.
Which is, if you cast Ever After, reanimating your Noxious Gearhulk and a Razaketh and gain 8, like, then with the trigger on the stack, like sack your Noxious Gearhulk and tutor Ever After and do it again the next turn.
That's pretty decent. Well, is it? It's just 8 life a turn for a.
But yeah, I mean, like, if you need to gain 8 life, is what I'm saying. Like, ideally, you just get like an Ishkana and have 3 blockers left over and a Noxious Gearhulk. But like anyway, there's a bunch of combination of cards you can get that like kind of solve issues.
Arborback Stomper and Razaketh.
Yeah. Right? Like you can tutor, like I'm just like, it has the engine to catch up. So that's what I would play. I think I would probably play Reanimator. I think it's like well positioned.
What would you play, Pete?
Probably Ramp, to be honest.
Like just red, green ramp?
Red, green ramp. I think with Thought-Knot Seers in the main, I think that hedges you a little bit better against the bigger decks, but I'm not entirely confident on that. But that's where I would lean.
It's just still scared of like the aggressive decks or what?
Yeah, like
even Constrictor decks got to be a little scary for you though, right?
Yeah, and like I just like that your red green ramp deck can hedge with Thought Seizes now. I'm like I feel like giving that up can't be right.
What do you mean?
Well, with
Thought-Knot Seer?
Thought-Knot Seer, yeah.
Yeah, I was like Thoughtseize.
Yeah, like you get that extra bit of interaction.
Thought-Knot Seer seems incredible in ramp, and like that's kind of funny though because like I'm pretty sure you said that week 1. Yeah. You were like the best ramp decks are going to play Thought-Knot Seer.
Yep.
Because like you need to just buy a turn. Like you need to take their Glorybringer or their Chandra for a turn and make them deal with Thought-Knot Seer instead of you, instead of killing you, so that you can get them later, right? Yeah, I could like this might be the time for ramp, like we said too, right? Like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and I mean it's both of those ramp and your Reanimator deck are basically doing the same thing. They're doing the mid-range thing kind of deal, but they also have a way to trump the other mid-range decks.
Right, yeah. It's like playing Worldbreaker is like a really powerful mid-range card, but then you also have Ulamog to just like completely crumple any.
Yeah, exactly.
Any mid-range deck. And also it solves the control problem.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas I guess the problem with the blue-black Reanimator deck is it's like I think it's pretty soft to control. It's where it's matchup because it's like a really mid-range deck. Like it's trying to play 5 and 6 drops. Like it's trying to set up this really mid-game powerful with early answers that don't do anything against control with very expensive mid-game threats that get canceled.
Yeah.
And I don't think it can win. So,
I mean,
but whereas ramp can win against control by just casting world breakers until they quit.
Yeah. That's a nice torrential gear Hulk you've got there.
How somebody exiled it.
How many do you have in your deck?
Because I have as many world breakers as I have as I have lands.
Yeah.
World breaker is really good. Maybe that's a good place to be this weekend. I could see that.
Yeah, I think Kozilek's. I feel like Kozilek's Return, World Breaker. I mean, you've got some anti-synergy with Kozilek's Return and Thought-Knot Seer, but
so what we're saying is mid-range is going to be good this weekend, but you should be gunning to beat it.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, I think that is the case. I think that is probably where we see standard go. I don't think like mono red's going to like run over this tournament.
I don't think we're going to see mono red do well at all.
I don't think it's even going to show up.
Yeah.
Or I mean, I think it'll show up, but I think like it won't even top 32.
Yeah,
I think it's like that.
Gonna have a rough go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about time for mono red to die. Like it's been how many weeks since the Pro Tour?
Yeah, it's like a month.
Yeah, this is usually about when in the mono red formats that it kind of falls out of favor.
Yeah. And then it'll be good again later.
Something about the flame that burns the hottest, burns out the fastest, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like the deck dominated the Pro Tour, but it's beatable. And, you know, people knew that right away. Like literally, remember we joked about the same weekend of the PPTQ online or the PTQ on Magic Online. Like there was no mono red in the top 8, like not even close, and people were just stomping it. So I think you're right. Like I think it's like the time that mid range now is good though because of that. Because people still be kind of scared, right? Like people still have sideboard cards for it or have skewed their main deck a little still to hedge, you know, I don't want to just get run over by that random guy at the GP playing mono red, right? So I think that mid-range was going to be able to prey on those decks. So maybe it faces mono red once and that's its one loss in 15 rounds, but it just stomps over everything else. Or like ramp, that's what happens, right? This is the weekend maybe ramp just goes crazy.
Yeah.
And just stomps. But I think this is the weekend that if you're going to play standard, like if you're playing in like an RPTQ, which Ted is going to be in Toronto. The RPTQ in Toronto is this weekend.
Is it?
Yeah.
Nice.
Dan lost in the quarters actually on Sunday in the Montreal one. Yeah. He's just like actually didn't even care apparently. He just shook his opponent's hand and was like, I was just going to use the trip to go on a vacation. I don't care. I think he's off Magic for like now.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, that's what he was saying when he was on the podcast, if I'm remembering correctly. He's basically going to just play out his gold status, maybe make silver. If not, then just kind of.
Yeah, he's just like, he's off it. He was like, I know that early on, it wasn't even because he wasn't like doing well. He did well at the first Pro Tour of the year. It was after that he said that the costs of GPs and like the amount of people and just like it wasn't
probably just a little burnt out.
He was just burnt out, and he said it was just the cost. He's like I can't spend $500 a weekend playing in a GP. So kind of a bummer that it's just like a gold pro was just like screw it, I'm out, you know, and quit because.
Not everyone can afford that kind of lifestyle. So
yeah, exactly. But yeah, like if you're going to the RPTQ this weekend, I don't think mono red is the kind of deck that's going to win. I think it's going to be like either ramp or a mid range deck. Ramp seems a little scary to me at an RPTQ.
Yeah, I don't know. I think black green constrictor is still a really good place to be.
That's why, and I feel like the black green constrictor deck can race you and like beat you down real fast.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's a little scary to me.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're good against like Thought Knot Seer and stuff. Like so, it's a little scary to me to play that when constrictor is good. Whereas like the blue black reanimator deck, I think just like dumpsters like zombies and constrictor decks.
Yeah, probably.
Because like you make a huge guy and Noxious Gear all kit, like thanks for coming out. So that's why I said I would play blue black reanimator, is it's good against constrictor and zombies and Rog Energy. Right? Like its soft matchup is like control. That's it. Although, you know, speaking of what I said, like I played some standard this week as well. And like, man, Cam's Grixis control list.
Yeah.
Like that deck is awesome. It was so good. The one that he top 8 the tower with, like, it was so consistent.
How was the mana?
Yeah, see, and like I thought it would suck
that's
just
what
like
I
you.
asked last
Yeah, that's what
time.
everyone said. It was perfect. Never had a problem.
I played basically that mana base, and you played that mana base with the Grixis tower deck, and you said it sucked, and I agreed.
No, it was a different mana base.
Really?
Yeah, he's not playing like any, like he's just playing the hand lands.
Yeah, that's what I was.
But you weren't playing the cycle lands.
Well, yeah, the cycle lands weren't out yet. But like, how did
they were like my hand lands always came into play untapped, always, because I had the cycle lands, and then like game would just cycle my cycle lands.
Yeah, but the mana base I was playing battle lands instead of the cycle lands.
Battle lands are unplayable. That's why they were unplayable in the Grixis list.
But they come into play tapped less often than
they never come into play tapped. Or sorry, they never come into play untapped.
Okay.
Like Sunken Hollow is just a tapped land.
So just like having the cycle is what's better here?
Yeah, and also you don't have to play like Evolving Wilds or anything.
That's true.
Yeah. The mana was like totally fine. Like I cast Lilies on turn 3. I cast Disallows on turn 3. Like it was totally fine. Obviously there were cases where I couldn't, but like I could still cast other spells. Like I mulliganed a lot with it. Like I mulliganed to 6 a lot. Just because of like what was in my hand, because it's less consistent, but it's more powerful, and it felt way more powerful in the mirror. And like I said, like Liliana, the Last Hope is so well positioned in standard right now. It's crazy. The card's so good. And getting back your Torrential Gearhulks, like people are like, oh, Torrential Gearhulk's not playable. People are braided. It's like, well, I'll just get it back with Lily. And that's what I was doing. Was people kill my Torrential Gearhulk, and I just don't care. I'll get it back later with Lily. Like even Phil is playing zombies a bunch. It's all he's been playing, and he's playing Liliana in main in his zombies list because you can protect it like so easily, and it's so good. It's the Mirror Breaker, like kills Crypt Breaker, like shuts down Relentless Dead. Like It just does so much. So yeah, Liliana's that's a good card right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's lots you can do in standard. Like there's lots of good directions, but I think a lot of them involve playing mid-range decks. You know, like
Even that, like, speaking of Liliana being good, that black-red deck, the 4 Liliana, 3 Chandra.
oh, the black-red quote-unquote control deck. That's actually just a mid-range
It's a
deck.
mid-range deck.
Yeah, it's a mid-range deck.
Yeah,
It's just removal, efficient creatures, efficient removal,
Yep.
planeswalkers to create value.
Yep.
Like the black-red control deck that you see online and that you see some people playing locally, like, you know, Kalidas, Goblin Dark. Goblin Dark Dweller is the most mid-range card ever printed. Like,
Yep.
it's just as a fact. Like, this is the definition of mid-range. Like, this is a classic, like, mid-range card. So, yeah, this is a classic mid-range deck, and you see it doing well at 5-0's lists, right? And it's Gonti, that's another classic mid-range card.
Notable, they've started playing the Scorpion God to out mid-range the other mid-range decks.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
See, they know, like, the gods are like mirror breakers for mid-range decks. That's like their whole purpose, right?
Yep.
That they're mirror breakers. So it's a good time to be mid-range, apparently.
And the advantage of this deck is Doomfall and Goblin Dark Dwellers.
Apparently, Doomfall's been really good for people who've played it. I haven't played with it yet, but people have said it's very, very good.
Yeah. It lets you hedge against basically everything, right? It was like typically a mid-range deck, you fill your deck full of creature removal spells, then you go up against some oddball thing and you can't do anything. Nope, Doomfall lets you like just take a counter spell out of a control deck. Or if you're a little bit ahead on board, you can Doomfall their hand just to protect your next threat too, right?
Yeah, like one of the classic mid-range problems is that like you draw removal in the control matchup. Like you quote unquote draw the wrong half of your deck.
Yep.
And the best mid-range decks have been decks that have modal answers and modal cards that allow them to pivot, I guess, right? It's the classic like pivot thing. Like Pete and I were talking on the way here about like some of the best mid-range decks. Like Abzan Charm was like a classic example, right? Because that card's 3 modes were put 2 counters.
Yep.
On creatures, or draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, or exile something power 3 or greater. Can you imagine how busted that card would be right now in standard? It would be the best card in standard. Because Khan's format was so powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, it was one of the best cards in its standard format.
Yeah.
Because like it would kill all important creatures. Like it would exile Hazoret, it would exile Kalidas, it would exile Glorybringer, it exile the gods. Mm-hmm. Like it's just berserk. In exile Torrential Gearhulk if you need, or against control it draws cards. So these are the kind of cards that mid-range decks want, right? Or cards that like
Yep.
And are never dead.
Are never dead. So the times when mid-range is good are the times when mid-range can have cards that aren't dead in its hand. Yeah.
And like looking at this black-red control deck, there's Fatal Pushes and Abrades that sort of only do one thing, but Chandra is a removal spell and also a proactive threat. Liliana is a removal spell and also a proactive threat. So is Obnixilis, Chandra Flamecaller, the Scorpion God, Noxious Gearhulk, Goblin Dark Dwellers, Glorybringer. Like this deck is full of modal cards, right?
Right. They
can either be threats or answers, depending on what you need.
So these are the times when mid-range is good, right? Like, and also a Braid kills Torrential Gearhulks. It's never, you know what I mean?
It's not totally dead, yeah.
Like it's not a fully dead card, and it's only one like fully dead card in the list is what? Fatal Push, like
and it plays 1 copy.
And it plays 1 copy, right? So like this is the kind of list where I actually really like this list. Like looking at it because like all of its cards can flip a switch. Like they can either play, reactive or they can try and kill you.
Yep.
Yeah, this is actually like a really well done, like, because normally I would always, and it's playing Sweltering Suns, which
cycles.
So it's fine. Because normally like these decks would make me sick to my stomach. Like these are the kind of mid-range decks like I hate typically because I'm like, ugh, like I'm just going to want to like go home and drop from the event if I play against like blue-red control and my opener is like a bunch of like grasps and fatal pushes. Like I'm just going to drop and go home. Because I'm basically on a mult of my lands.
Yeah.
Like I mulled to 3 lands and like that's it,
Yeah.
But like this deck at least like it has stuff that's annoying to deal with, like good threats.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good time to be mid-range apparently because there's a bunch of these decks on the 5-0 moto list. Like you slowly start to see them, right? Like the blue-black reanimator decks like popping up, like a bunch of mid-range decks that just popping up all over. Maybe like Godpharaoh's Gifts start being good again. Because mono red's like the issue for that deck.
Godpharaoh's gift has been like consistently 5-0ing.
Yeah, like I think that deck's always been good. I think it's like it was rumored to be like bad or whatever. I don't think it ever was.
Well, it was bad against mono red, which we've been talking this whole time that isn't really playable anymore.
Yeah, and what I remember, man, like just the week before the Pro Tour, we said in a world of mid-range, you said sideboard in God Pharaoh's Gate, because like that's a mirror breaker. Like the God Pharaoh's Gift is the kind of card, just like Scarab, that like gets you value just every turn, does something with your mana. Like,
Man, I have fond memories boarding in Deadbridge Chant in the old Jund standard decks.
what did that card do again?
So it was a 6-mana green-black enchantment. When it came into play, you milled, I believe, 6, possibly 8 cards. And at the beginning of your upkeep, this was a little irritating. You had to choose a card at random from your graveyard. And if it was a permanent, it put it into... No. If it was a permanent, you put it into play? Or if it was a creature, you put it into play?
And yes, and if it's a spell, it goes to your hand.
Yeah,
right?
I think you might have to pick a non-land. There was some restriction, and it was random, so it was like irritating to actually resolve it, but it was just like...
Yeah, put the top 10 cards of your library in your graveyard.
10. Oh, boy.
Beginning your upkeep, choose a card at random from your graveyard. If it's a creature, put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, put it in your hand.
Yeah, so it just like gives you value every turn.
That is a slow card.
It is. Fairly slow.
That's a pretty mid-range card.
Yep.
But these are the kinds of cards like mid-range wants. It's like,
I mean,
what was the bounty? The Primeval Bounty?
Primeval Bounty.
That card was like a mid-range god. Like those are the kind of cards that like mid-range decks thrive on, right? Like, I mean, that they want to be playing.
The little interesting thing about Deadbridge Chant, it was in the same deck as Scavenging Ooze. You could control what you got a lot of the time. You would just eat out all the garbage. You'd just be putting in like Thrag Tusks over and over and over again.
Okay, that's actually sweet. See, mid-range decks aren't just a pile of good cards.
No, there's all sorts of little synergies.
Yeah, they're well built for that. Right?
Yeah, and like even just like that's one of the most important things about building a mid-range deck is your removal has to cover all of your bases. Like your removal has to synergize with each other, and they have to synergize with what everyone else is doing. Maybe not synergize, but
yeah, almost like control decks. It feels like mid-range decks have to line up. They have to know what their enemy is, right?
Yeah.
They have to line up well in the format.
So you're not just playing the best removal spells. You're playing removal spells that are powerful, but that are the best at any given time and in the right numbers and proportions.
Same with creatures, right? Like
yeah, exactly.
Creatures, same the creature count, what creatures you're playing for the same reason.
Yeah.
Just picking them willy-nilly at random, right? Like mid-range has to, perhaps even more than control, because control has kind of like universal answers in cancels and essence scatters or whatever, right? But these kind of mid-range decks, like they really need to know what they're up against to even have a shot.
Yeah. The Return to Ravnica Jund decks, like week to week, you would switch up Tragic Slips versus Pillar of Flames as your 1-mana removal spells.
Right, because sometimes you need to kill the zombies like Geralf's Messenger that comes back, and sometimes you need to kill
a Falconwrath Aristocrat.
Yeah.
Sometimes you needed Dreadboards, sometimes you were playing Putrefies, sometimes you were playing what was the slow 3-mana card? I don't remember, but like you were constantly switching up your removal.
Yeah, and like creature count, like what kind of creatures, whether you were bothering with playing Arbor Elves or not.
Yeah, how much ramp were you playing? Arbor Elves and Farseek, and there was the artifact that turned into a 3/1.
Yeah.
Rakdos Keyrune, yeah.
What, people played all types of these different cards, like, and it always changed because like it was based on the meta, right? Like, so mid-range decks, like they get this rap as just being a pile of good cards. Like people just threw all their rares and mythics together, but actually, like, no, this isn't the case. They actually attack the metagame in a very particular way, in that they're trying to tag a format that's just on the cusp of still being aggro. It feels like, right? That isn't hyper aggressive.
Yeah.
But it's still aggressive and low to the ground that they can prey on by just going that much bigger.
Yep.
And still having this kind of synergy and like powerful late game that no one can really defeat.
Mm-hmm.
And so they position their creatures and line up their removal in a way that best tackles these threats and deals with this format. So they actually, to play mid-range properly, like you need to know the format and you need to know what's going on.
Yep.
And what cards matter.
And you need to have a sideboard. Like your sideboard is so important in mid-range decks because you have dead cards in a lot of matchups.
Right.
So you need to have, typically this is like, you'll have like 8 cards for control. This is you take all your dead removal out and you bring in like Dream Stealers and extra Gaunties and stuff like that. Lay Bare the Heart, discard, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I even think of like the kind of metagame you think, okay, Scorpion God, that's pretty cute. Like, is it really good? And then it's like, like people still play Monument.
Yeah.
Like this hits a 2/1 out of mono red and draws a card. If they draw like a 2/1 late, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like being able to just put a -1/-1 counter on stuff, like,
people,
when you need to.
People all
this is still a metagame decision, and whether it's cute or not, it lines up well against some decks.
Yeah. Like people constantly underestimate the power of -1. Like when they read -1 counter, they think give a thing -1 until the end of turn. Like it's so powerful just to make like a 2/3 flyer into a 1/2. It's like half the clock.
Yeah, right. Like now it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Basically, like I can take one forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that being said, should probably wrap this up.
Oh, but
Any other tips on midrange?
Any other tips? Know when? Yeah, go listen to the episode on pivoting. You have to know when to stop being like you can't answer everything forever. So you have to know when to stop being reactive and when to start smashing.
Yeah, that's the aggro mirror.
Yeah, so go
episode.
Listen to the.
But yeah, you need to know when to turn the corner.
Yeah,
Like
that's
all right. Like I have board presence, and I need to smash. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
So thank you all for joining the club this week. Make sure you check out wizardtower.com for all your Magic single needs. Check us out on Facebook at Disorganized Wizard Club Podcast. Send us a message there. Just give us a like. Shoot us an email at disorganizedwizardclub@gmail.com. And however you listen to this podcast, whether it's on Podbean, iTunes, or your podcast app, leave us a review, rate our podcast, share it with your friends. Word of mouth is the best way to get this podcast growing. And yeah. Anything else to say, boys?
Nope. Thanks for listening.
See you
See you later.
week.